So it's to that point that Hebrews asks us a question. It says, what kind of priest are you going to be? Are you going to be the kind of priest that recognizes weaknesses and then builds a bridge between God's world and this world, between God and between people? Or are you going to be the kind of person that tears those bridges down? And sometimes we tear them down because other people, they haven't seen the credits like we've seen them, or perhaps their weaknesses really turn us off, or they've really hurt us, or maybe we really don't quite care about them, so we just go around tearing all that stuff down. Really? Hebrews asks, do you recognize that you're walking around clothed, dressed in your weakness? That it is obvious? That it is there? And if you realize that, what is it leading you towards? Is it leading you towards compassion for others? Or is it leading you towards something else? You see, Hebrews 5 reminds us that as priests, part of our job is to offer forgiveness for the past, for all the bad stuff that has happened and all the bad stuff that's happened to us. But it doesn't stop there. We not only offer forgiveness for the past, but we also offer grace for the future, for all the bad things that are going to happen and all the bad things that are going to happen to us. And it's only when we live giving and offering forgiveness in the past and offering grace for the future that we can live the full and abundant life that God has offered to us in the here and now. Now, do we take sin seriously? Oh yeah, we do. Because we know that it destroys everything. But we also know that sin doesn't have a hold on us. I've stayed past the credits. You know what it says? It says that Jesus broke the chains of sin and death and guilt, and it has no hold over us. Let me just tell you a bit of a story that might put some meat on the bones for you. My dad just retired. He worked 40 or 50 years with a company. He was a co-owner and operator, and his whole life we made Italian soft drinks. They're amazing. They are great. And I remember when I was old enough to finally go to work with him for a summer. I'm like 15 years old. I remember thinking to myself, this is going to be great. You know why? Because I'm the boss's son. Like, I was a very cocky teenager. And it's very hard to believe that, but super cocky. Just crazy, right? I know, right? So I'm sticking out there, my chest is out, I'm like, I'm the boss's son. Show me where my office is. Show me who I'm in charge of. Who's the person that's going to get me a candy bar from the snack truck when it rolls up at 10 minutes after 9? That's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking my dad is going to put me in a high place because all of this belongs to me. I'm the boss's son. And you know what my dad did to me? He actually put me on the worst job possible. So in that time, this is going to show you how old I am, soft drinks didn't come in plastic bottles. They only came in glass bottles, remember? And they were 750 ml bottles, and they would come in big, red, thick cases. There was 12 bottles per. And the first thing that you would do at the pop factory, first thing in the morning, was unload the home delivery trucks. Anyone remember that? When pop was like delivered to your front door? You could? Some of you remember, right? Because it was too heavy. You're not carrying that crap. That's too much. They bring it to my door. So the home delivery trucks have to be unloaded, quick, because they have to refill and go back out. So my dad puts me on the part of the assembly line where I'm just heaving these cases all morning long. And you lay them, and there's 9, there's a certain setup, and you do it like five stacks high, and you're going. And these aren't clean cases. They're dusty, they're dirty. Some are half full of moldy pop. Some of it spills all over you. Sometimes there's vermin that comes out of the cases and run all over you. And you're dusty and gross and coughing. First thing of the day, you are disgusting, and you got to wear those same clothes for the rest of the 10-hour shift. And I was peeved. I was so angry that my dad gave me the worst job on the factory floor. Not only was it the worst job, but this job also had the worst hours. Because you had to be there first, just before 7 a.m. That sucks for a teenager. It's terrible. And because my dad was the boss, I couldn't leave with everybody else. I had to stay until his work was done. So I had the worst job ever and the worst hours ever. And to build the hat trick right there, I also had the worst pay ever. I think at that time, Ontario's minimum wage was approaching $6. It was like $5 and change. I investigated a little bit and talked to the other guys who worked there. I was making less than all of them. Now, I can look back at that and say, well, my dad, you know what? He was trying to show me something. He was trying to teach me something. It wouldn't have been good for me to walk into the factory on the first day at 15 years old and march up to the offices. He was trying to instill something in me, maybe even break me a little bit. And it was good, and it was right. But you know what? It wasn't only for me, but it was also for those other men and women who worked on the factory floor 10 hours a day, sometimes 5 or 6 days a week, 12 months a year. Because what would it have said to them if the boss's son comes marching in past the factory floor and up to the top? What does it say about my dad, the boss, where the son doesn't get any sort of special treatment? And then what does it say to the employees that for 2 months in the summer, someone's going to show up and do the worst job possible at the worst time for the worst pay so that they don't have to? That is the picture that we get of Jesus in Hebrews. Jesus is the boss's son, and he's on the factory floor, and he has to do the work. He has to experience it. He has to feel it. He's got to do the worst job at the worst hours with the lowest pay. So in this, Hebrews says that Jesus reaches his full maturity. Your Bible might say he was made perfect or he was made complete. But maybe a better understanding or translation of this passage is he was made fully qualified. That is, he felt your pain. He knew what it was to work on the factory floor. He knows what you're going through and who you are. He knows how you feel. So then, this sets an example. Jesus sets the example for us that actually become our marching orders. Henry Nouwen describes it like this, that if you want to lead on the highest level, be willing to serve on the lowest. But you know what that does to us? That puts us on a direct path to suffering, a path that we generally want to avoid. Imagine if we were to regress. Now, hey, breastfeeding is beautiful, it is natural, it is good, it's not shameful. Got to do what you got to do. And I've never weaned a child personally. However, I understand from what I have been told and observed that, around 1 year of age-ish is when a child is weaned. And for some of us, we go a bit longer, and that's your prerogative, and that's great. But what if it went on just a little bit too long? What would it be like if a 10-year-old was still breastfeeding? Awkward for mom and the kid. What if a 20-year-old? What about a 30-year-old? What if a 42-year-old called his mom and said, "Mom, I'm hungry, I'm coming over for a snack, get ready"? It's gross, right? Just a little bit. You're losing your appetite, right? Good. That is the point that Hebrews is trying to make. The author is saying, that's gross. You know better. You can't go back to that. You've had better. Listen, you are responsible for what you eat, meaning you are responsible for your own spiritual growth, so you need to begin to develop an appetite for the good stuff. What's the good stuff? Grace and mercy and compassion and forgiveness and suffering and knowledge and instruction. Those are the kinds of things that you need to be eating, or else we're going to lose our appetite watching you go back. And some people might say, well, sometimes I'm still a baby Christian in some areas, but I'm kind of a mature Christian in other areas. Yeah, I don't know if the author of Hebrews would agree with you. Think of it like this. You're going to go home for lunch. Imagine what it would be like to eat a beautifully barbecued 3.5-inch tenderloin steak, medium rare, Maybe there's some garlic butter melting on that. Maybe you've got some fried onions. Maybe you've got some mushrooms. If you're really risky, you'll put some prawns on top. Oh, so good. Imagine having that amazing meal and then washing it all down with mother's milk. Gross. You can't do it. It doesn't work. So Hebrews says, you cannot go back to the basics. It's time for you to grow up. It's time for you who have seen past the credits to put into play what you've seen then into the right now. And Hebrews describes those kinds of people as mature Christians. Your Bible might say it's the justified, which means those people who really care about doing justice. Your Bible might translate it as those who are the righteous, those who really care about doing things right. And all those pieces have a part to play. But let's not get confused here. The point that the author is trying to make isn't to behave yourself. It's not even about sitting around like a helpless baby waiting for God to spoon feed you. But he's saying this. I think it's actually an encouragement. That's how I read it. He's saying, you got this. You know how to do this. Take what you know and put it into play. So whatever chaos is going on in your life, make the right call. Make the mature call. You know how to tell the difference between beginner stuff and veteran stuff, between good and between evil. You know what it means to bridge a world between God's world and this other world, between God and between people. You know how to do this. You have got this. And this has nothing to do with you being moral. This is more about you bringing God's healing and redemption exactly where it is needed most. And don't for a second think that this is just a choice that you made once a million years ago and now you can live off those fumes. It doesn't work that way.